Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Listen, let's just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the news right now because a lot of people are here thinking that Canelo Alvarez is going to sit here and put his legacy on the line against David Benavidez, against Edgard, Berlanga, and against Morrell. And you know what? I'm going to tell you what. He's going to put it against the line against one of these guys. But he's not going to fight the other two. And I'm going to tell you that right now. Now, for those of you who are saying, all right, we know who Berlanga is, we know who Benavidez is. Some people don't know who Morrell is. But let me just show you a little clip of why I don't think Canelo's going to fight this guy. Has nothing to do with knockouts. It has everything to do with this.
There's again, continues to go to work. The angles, a right hook to the body. Now, there's again, continues to go to work.
You see that footwork? Watch it again.
The angles, a right hook to the body. Now, there's again, continues.
Now watch. He jumps. He changes positions, and watch this combination.
To go to work. The angles, a right hook to the body. Now, there's again, continues to go to work. The angles, a right hook to the body. Now,
let me tell you right now. Canelo Alvarez wants no parts of anyone who can play hopscotch buns in the ring and counter you and change angles and hit you with shots you don't see. All right? So, Morrell, no way he's going to fight him. But in all seriousness, what we need to understand is Canelo Alvarez, he's looking for the biggest money fights. We know he's fighting at home against Ryder. No big money in that, but he's giving his fans, he's giving his countrymen an opportunity to watch him fight. But the reality of what we're dealing with here when it comes to a guy like Canelo Alvarez, and let me show you guys something. I'm gonna go ahead and make an adjustment to my screen as well. Let me make this a little bigger for you guys so you guys can see everything. All right. So once we start to understand Canelo Alvarez and kind of his position when we think about him at super middleweight, you can just take a look at the rack and stack. You got Benavidez, Plant. Okay, we know Plant just took a loss, but there's nothing wrong with taking a loss to the number 2 guy when you've already fought the number 1. And basically, he's cemented himself as the number 3 right now. But as you see, you got this guy Ryder, and then you got Morrell. You know, Alvarez is about to fight Ryder, and then you got Morrell there, just kind of lurking there, and I would just say 4th place. Then you got a couple other names on here that really don't matter at this time. But as you start to come down and you take a look, you're going to understand why I am talking about Morrell, Berlanga, and Benavidez when you look at this right here. So for those of you who didn't know, Canelo Alvarez is the man at 168 pounds. He's undisputed, putting that on the line against Ryder. Now, for those of you who didn't know, Ryder is a WBO interim world superweight champion, so he's fighting his mandatory. Canelo's fighting his mandatory for the WBO, which should be, I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy one, but Canelo should get through it. But then again, you know, Canelo has been doing this for a long time. You just don't know when your age shows up, when the wear and tear is going to show up in the ring. So I give John Ryder a good chance to let the boxing fans know that he's a qualified opponent. I don't think he's going to beat Canelo. Now you come over to the IBF, you can see Canelo is still holding strong with the super middleweight championship for the IBF. If he has to face a mandatory, maybe this William Skull guy. A lot of people don't know who it is. He already fought Caleb Plant, and the number 2 is a guy named Shishkin. But then you come over to the WBC. See, this is where it gets tricky. To me, if Canelo's going to fight his WBO mandatory, then the fight that should be up next is David Benavidez. That's what Benavidez and Caleb Plant fought, so that the winner of that fight can fight Canelo. Now, this is what sucks, right? Well, first let me tell you about the WBA because, man, I'm about to get agitated. Then you look at the WBA. They should be up after the WBC. So the way this should work is the WBO, they get their mandatory in there, which is Ryder. After that fight, Canelo should fight the WBC mandatory, David Benavidez. And then the WBA mandatory, Morrell, and then the IBF, whoever they designate as mandatory. That's how it should work, right? This is not rocket science, you know what I mean? When you think about Canelo, you think about Morrell, you think about Benavidez, right? And you think about what Canelo Alvarez is going to do. That should be Canelo Alvarez. The rest of his 2023, it should be Ryder, then Benavidez at the end of the year. And then early 2024 should be David Morrell. But that's not what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you guys what's going to happen. Canelo Alvarez, after the Ryder fight, later this year, they're already working it out. You know, the WBC let Canelo do whatever he wants. They love Canelo. So Canelo Alvarez is going to be fighting Bivol. Now, for those of you saying, how is he able to do that when he has these mandatories? Because of secret society, all right? These sanctioning bodies, this secret society, they have a symbiotic relationship, and they choose when they want to do what's best for the sanctioning bodies and for boxing. But when you have somebody like Canelo Alvarez, he tends to get away with some perks that not other fighters, excuse me, can get away with. And I think this is really unfortunate because he goes on to fight Bivol, which he's going to lose again. The Canelo Alvarez cannot beat Bivol. And then he comes, and I don't know what weight he's going to fight Bivol at. They're talking about putting all the titles on the line at 168, so they're trying to drain Bivol. But Bivol's not worried about that. Bivol looking at making legacy at 175, so I don't think Canelo Alvarez is going to be able to dictate a damn thing to Bivol because Bivol doesn't care about money. So he gets through Bivol, but then going into early next year, 2024, it's either going to be Benavidez or Morrell, but that's not going to happen. You know why? Because you got this guy named Edgard Berlanga, right, who's just kind of floating around. Now, when you look under the column for the WBO, and you look where Edgard Berlanga is, he's ranked number 5, right? Berlanga has a fight, I think he's fighting like the next month and a half or so. But he just signed with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Canelo Alvarez does business with Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, DAZN. Edgard Berlanga, same thing, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN. That's the fight they're trying to make, Puerto Rico against Mexico. They're not worried about making no damn Mexico versus Cuba, Mexico versus the American. David Benavidez, people call him the Mexican monster. He's half Mexican, half Ecuadorian. So he doesn't qualify, all right, to be held in regard as a true 100% Mexican monster. Now his dad's Mexican, no doubt. So I mean, he qualifies to claim the Mexican heritage, but to go out here trumpeting that he represents for all Mexicans, nah, man, I don't think he qualifies at all. I think he is not going to be the priority, and he's not the big money fight. Now Edgard Berlanga, he's straight Puerto Rican, man. Now, I don't know if he was born in Puerto Rico or New York, but I know that man is straight up Puerto Rican, man. You know what I'm saying? He spends a lot of time in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is home to him. Puerto Rico and New York are home. And the whole island, you're going to get a lot of people that get behind Edgard Berlanga. There's going to be a lot of money for an Alvarez-Berlanga fight. Why in the world would anyone try to line up Alvarez against Benavidez? All right? That's career suicide. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say it. I think Benavidez beats Alvarez. No problem. I think David Morrell beats Alvarez. And you know what? There are other people who are part of the secret society and key decision makers in boxing who believe the same thing. Right? I'm not saying that because I dislike Canelo Alvarez. I want to see him lose. I'm just giving you my opinion, which I think is an educated perspective on what I've been observing in boxing and what I know about the sport. And I'm going to tell you, stylistically, a guy like David Benavidez is just one of the worst style matchups for Canelo Alvarez. Benavidez, as much as, if people didn't realize after watching him fight Caleb Plant, Benavidez isn't a guy who's just going to necessarily just stand in front of you and go rock 'em, sock 'em robots. He can jab. His head movement has developed. He uses good angles and he can get to a mid-range and actually box. But he likes to get in there and he likes to mix it up. That's where Alvarez could have a little bit of a chance, but at the same time, David Benavidez has good defense. He has that high guard. He gets his hands up. And I just don't think whatever Canelo Alvarez tries to do, I think David Benavidez is a much bigger opponent. And the size matters. And I think you guys would agree. Canelo Alvarez at 168 against David Benavidez, Canelo Alvarez is at a disadvantage. I just don't think he's going to be able to I think Canelo Alvarez is going to run into the same thing he ran into with Bivol. You know, someone who's just bigger and stronger. But David Benavidez isn't a boxer puncher like Bivol. So Canelo could have opportunities and Canelo will land, but I think Benavidez just laughs it off and just keeps coming forward and pressing him. And Benavidez' work rate is something Canelo Alvarez doesn't have. Canelo Alvarez gets tired. His work rate diminishes. David Benavidez' work rate picks up. This is a lose-lose situation for Alvarez. So why would he go into that fight knowing that the plan is for him and Berlanga? Like him and Berlanga, I really think if Berlanga can go out here and win, which I think Eddie Hearn's going to put him in some bouts to test him, but nothing that would risk the Berlanga-Alvarez fight. There's no way in the world Alvarez is going to fight Benavidez in the WBC. You watch the boxing politics come into place. You watch the secret society and how they start to play aggressive chess when it comes to what Alvarez does next. There's no way in the world they're going to risk that. They want the big money fight. So Berlanga and Alvarez, you see if Berlanga has a fight by the summer, has another fight at the end of this year, early next year, Berlanga and Canelo Alvarez could happen. And especially if Alvarez pushes for it. I'm telling you right now, that's the direction they're going to go. You talk about David Morrell, right? This man's a WBA World Super Middleweight Champion. Now, I don't really know what the plan is. I don't know what the plan is for David Morrell. But people look at his record. Oh, he only has 8 wins. He's a different kind of animal with his amateur pedigree and everything else. That's why he's where he's at with only 8 fights. He is a monster. But they're not going to put Alvarez in with him either. Young, powerful, super tricky, excellent master boxer puncher from Cuba. It's just, they're not going to do that to Canelo Alvarez. That's a lose-lose situation. Morrell, Benavidez are bad medicine. Now, for you saying, okay, well, if the secret society decides to play their cards and they don't want to put Canelo Alvarez with Benavidez or with Morrell, so then what can Alvarez realistically do? Well, I'm going to tell you. He's fighting Ryder. After that, you see you got a guy like Demetrius Andre floating around. And then after that at 168, you got some of these names here that no one really knows of that they can throw him in the ring with. But the reality of the situation is Canelo Alvarez does what he wants. Okay? So to look at this racking stack and say this guy could be next, no. Do you know who's next for Canelo Alvarez? Is whoever the hell Canelo Alvarez picks. And that's a good thing to see that he's earned that position. But it, for us, can be a bad thing because we don't get to see him fight Diego Pacheco. Okay, I'll tell you who's going to be fighting Diego Pacheco. It's probably going to be Berlanga. That's going to probably be the fight. Not his next one, but the one after. I think he's supposed to be fighting Daniel Jacobs. Either him or Jamal Charlo. One of them is supposed to be fighting Daniel Jacobs. But if Edgar Berlanga does fight Daniel Jacobs, his next fight could be a guy like Diego Pacheco. And if he beats him, he beats a Mexican, Mexican-American, Mexican, whatever. You know they're going to settle that as Puerto Rico versus Mexico. And then Berlanga is going to go on after that to fight one of Guadalajara's finest in Canelo Alvarez. So that's the way I map it out. I see Alvarez getting through Ryder, trying to fight Bivol this year. He'll lose to Bivol. Then early next year, Berlanga should have had 2 fights. One against maybe a guy like Jacobs. Later this year, maybe a Diego Pacheco. Then next year, fight Canelo Alvarez. And Alvarez, I think Alvarez right now, I know, destroys Berlanga. But if Berlanga can, work on his skill set, work on his defense, quit worrying so much about talking about how he's a celebrity, he's a superstar and all that, he needs to get beyond that crap. And he may be able to make it competitive, but Berlanga, to me, is just not Miguel Cotto. He's not Felix Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? He's not there yet. I don't think he's there yet. And maybe the next year will be enough time for him to work on himself. But the reality of the situation, people, as we sit here and we talk about it, is Canelo Alvarez, Benavidez, Morrell. Those fights, I do not think those fights are going to happen at all. I just don't see it happening. Canelo Alvarez will fight Berlanga before Morrell and Benavidez, even though Morrell and Benavidez should be his next mandatories. But Canelo Alvarez is in a position like Earl Spence, where you talk about having to face killers. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back down here. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. When you hear me talk about Earl Spence, right? This is what I'm talking about. You look at Earl Spence, right? This man has the IBF, WBC, and WBA belt. right? His mandatory for the IBF. It should be Jerome Boots Ennis, but we know Jerome Boots Ennis is looking to return to the ring to get a fight, and then maybe go on to fight Spence. Tough fight for Spence. The WBC, Spence is supposed to be Thurman. Who knows what's going on? Tough fight for Spence. Earl Spence got to fight the winner of Virgil Ortiz, Stan Eunice. Tough fight for Spence. So you can see with Earl Spence, with all those belts, those 3 belts he has hard fights. I don't care what anyone says. Boots Ennis, Thurman, Stan Eunice, Ortiz are difficult fights. So when you come back up here and you look at Canelo Alvarez, and you see that Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting a Ryder. Not a hard fight, but it's tough. But that Benavidez and Morrell, let me tell you right now, man, those are 2 fights right there I don't think Canelo Alvarez wants at all. Remember, him bubbling up to these weight classes is not because he's actually fighting everybody at 168 to prove he's the best. He went up there and he did what he had to do. He won the belts, but a little bit of cherry picking going on. But I think right now, Canelo Alvarez is putting down the cherries and he's picking up the duck sauce, because he's going to be putting that all over his fried rice, his tacos, his carne asada. This man is all about the duck sauce when it comes to Morrell and Benavidez. So that being said, don't get your hopes up on Canelo Alvarez fighting what should be his mandatories. The secret society, the WBC, the sanctioning bodies going to work together to make sure that Canelo Alvarez can get through the year and start off 2024 with the big Mexican versus Puerto Rico fight. Don't know where it's going to take place, but that's the fight that they're going to make. Berlanga is a lesser risk for Canelo than these other 2 young killers. And that damn David Benavidez, yo. We call him the Mexican Monster because that's his name. But let me tell you something. That damn Benavidez is on something. And I don't mean like on Pez. I mean like he's on to something great. Like that damn Benavidez, when you see a guy who's that strong, that durable, who gets stronger as each round goes by, that's a problem, man. And I think anybody who fights him is going to have an issue. I think they're going to struggle with him. He's just got it right now. It is what it is. And Morrell is another one. He's got it. He's a problem. So that being said, more to come on Canelo Alvarez, Berlanga. But hey, don't get your hopes up for Alvarez fighting no damn Benavidez. Trust me. I don't even care if Alvarez could take a hammer in there, a bat, a sawed-off shotgun, fart spray. It doesn't matter. His ass is not getting in the ring with no damn Benavidez. He's gonna sit there, put down the damn taco, the chimichanga. My boy gonna pick up that fried rice, and he gonna put about 10, 11 sauces of packets of that duck sauce, because he's not messing with no damn Benavidez or Morrell. That being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans. Like, subscribe, donate to the channel. I'm in the breeze.